Okay, here we go. Last night's homework. I'm going to do a problem from every section. I'm going to get started on tonight's homework. Number 2, it says estimate the angle to the nearest 1/2 radian. This is whenever you're literally going to take your paper, in your book, and you're going to fold it on page 249, and you're going to compare and contrast this. Okay? On page 249, fold that in there so that you can see it. Okay? And your angle, number 2, looks something like this. Do we see that? Okay? Now, all you have to do is say, well, let's look at on page 249. If we have our lovely x-axis here, how many radians is slightly past the bottom of the negative y-axis? How many radians? Okay,
4.
It's over 4, but it's almost to where? 5. I would say it's closer to 5 radians than it is 4.5 radians. Just saying. So if you put 4.5 radians, I would accept that, but I believe it's 5 radians. I like 5 radians better.
Stop talking.
So what? Stop, what's that? No. If you don't say it, I can't help you. It says to go ahead and to estimate the number of radians. You have to do that according to on page 249, that middle figure there. This. Compare this angle right here to where it is over here. So it goes around here. So it's going to be 5 radians. It's the square of the circle. You don't offer to go initial term. And I'll go in here. Where's the ending? And I fold it over. Transfer this down to 1 right? How many here? How many does that? 3 and a little bit, right? So this is over, so it's going to be about what? 3.5.
Wasn't 30.
This is going to be.
Yeah, I'm back.
They're flippable.
I think she's listening.
So this is going to be 100 right here.
Okay, I'm not worried about that. If you're struggling with this part of it, this is so not important to me on this part. Okay, what's more important is going to be the next section. 5 through 8. This is 5 through 8. Determine the quadrant. Number 6.
I didn't understand this part.
Negative pi over 12. The reason why you don't understand this part is because let's look at the unit circle a little bit, okay? I want you in your notes, I want you to draw the circle. Okay, it does. Looks like a bullseye, a scope, right? Target. Looking right down your scope. Okay? What I want you to understand here is if I first start, I'm at 0 degrees. 0 degrees, and I go all the way around the circle, how many degrees is that going to be? 360. If I go halfway around the circle, what's over here?
Wait a darn minute.
180 degrees, right? Now, what's in between 0 and 180? 90 degrees. Well, that makes sense because it's a 90-degree angle right here at the origin. Well, what's in between 180 and 360 on the bottom?
270.
Why is it 270? Because 180 plus 90 is 270. Do we understand that? This is all common knowledge for you. Do we all understand that? Yes or no? Okay? Now, here's the jump that starts getting confused. Whenever I start throwing the radians on. Now, yesterday I said that whenever we had our circumference of our circle, how many units was in our circumference? And a smidgen. 6 and a smidgen. 6.28. So what you're telling me is 6.28 was the same thing as? Which is the same thing as? 2 pi, right? 2 pi, right? Now, yesterday we said that 180 degrees was the same thing as pi, which was the same thing as 3.14. Yes? Yes? Now, if pi is 180, what's 90? Why is it half pi? Because you're taking 180 and divided by 2, so you're going to take pi and divide it by 2. So that's going to give you 1/2 pi. So if I have $3.14, what's half of that?
So wait, you put pi and then a mark. Oh, I was wondering what that was.
Well, half of 3 is going to be 1.5. Half of 14 is going to be 7, so it's 1.57. Yes? Okay. Now, if I'm at pi, then I need to go down to 270. I was at 180. I need to go down to 270. Well, let's think about this a little bit. Well, if 90 is pi over 2, right? I'm going to add another 90 degrees, or another pi over 2. So pi over 2 and pi over 2 is? Okay, this is where I get really annoyed, because are you listening to me? Write down what I'm saying on your paper. Write it down. Are you listening? I'm at 90 degrees. 90 degrees is pi over 2. If I take pi over 2 and I add another pi over 2 to that, what does that give me? 2 pi over 2, right? Which is 1 pi. If I'm at pi, which is 2 pi over 2, and I add another pi over 2 to it, what does that give me? 3 pi over 2. So if I have 3.14 being pi and 1.57 being pi over 2, what's 270 degrees?
Get off that watch. I can go
7 and 4 is 11. 5 plus 1 plus 1 is 7. 4 and 1 gives me, or 3 and 1 gives me 4.71. You see that? Now I've given you decimal equivalents around the circle. I've given you degree equivalents around the circle, and I've given you radian equivalents around the circle. Yes? You got to memorize every one of those. Was that brain stopping material right there? Did it blow up anybody's brain? That was common sense, right? Okay. Well, now I'm going to throw something else at you. Half of 90 is 45, right? What's pi over 2? 90 degrees. So half of pi over 2. What does of mean in mathematics? So half of pi over 2. Pi over 2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Write it down. I'll repeat this. Are you listening to me? Half of pi over 2. That's pi over 2 times 1/2. That gives you pi over 4. So what this means is, this is pi over 4.
Will it throw you off if you sometimes think of pi as being 1?
It is 1 pi. You can think of pi as a variable. That's perfectly fine. Okay? Now, if 45 degrees plus 45 degrees is 90, what's 90 plus 45? This is 135. Plus 45 gives me
a bigger circle.
180 plus 45 gives me plus 45 gives me plus 45 gives me plus 45 gives me. Did you see we already had those? Yes or no?
It's not so ugly anymore.
Ah!
I feel bad because it is ugly, but it's not bad.
Okay, so now we have to go around the circle and add by what? 1/4, right? So 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4, which is 1/2. 2/4 plus 1/4 gives me 3/4. Plus 1/4 gives me 4/4, which is pi. Plus another 4th gives me 5/4. Plus another 4th gives me 6/4, which reduces down to
3 or 2.
plus another 4th gives me, plus another 4th gives me 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi, right? Now, I just gave you a lot of information there, didn't I? Now, what I want your brain to really think about now is, why is this denominator 2 and this denominator 4? But this is a bigger angle than what this is. So why did my denominator get bigger when my angle got smaller?
Well, technically, that's all it is fraction. Well, I gotta cutting the whole thing in the
Smaller the gray one, smaller one side, kind of 4.
I did, but I really want a very simple explanation. What did you say?
Smaller the denominator, smaller
The bigger the denominator is. For example, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 37, doesn't matter.
Like 37.
The smaller the angle is. Does that make sense? Do we get that? It's just like baking. If you have a half of a teaspoon versus an eighth of a teaspoon, which one's bigger? The half teaspoon is bigger. Do we understand that?
Just like.
Okay? Now, why am I talking about that? Because that's going to go right back to this column right here, where it says negative pi over 12. Now, first of all, let's just talk about the pi over 12. What type of an angle is pi over 12? A small angle, right? Meaning, what quadrant would it be in? If I was talking about pi over 12, it's going to be in quadrant 1. Why do I know that? Because pi over 4 is 45 degrees, and that's already in quadrant 1. If I'm going to go smaller than that with the denominator, I'm going to be, or bigger than that with the denominator, I'm still going to be in quadrant 1, correct? However, I have a negative pi over 12. So what does that negative indicate? I'm opening the opposite direction. So what I want you to do is on your paper, I literally want you to think about, if this is my initial side, what's my initial side? It's the side that doesn't move, right? Then my terminal side, which is the side that does move with my angle, is going to be right here, and I'm going to be opening in this direction. Why is it in quadrant 4? Because you moved the opposite direction. Do we understand that? Do we understand that? If it's negative, I actually have negative 90, which is negative pi over 2. I have negative 180, which is going to be negative pi. I have negative 270, which is going to be negative 3 pi over 2. Can you see that? Everything swaps. Yes? Everything swaps. Okay? Now, that was A. What's B?
Negative 11 pi over 9.
Negative 11 pi over 9. Now, let's think about that a minute. Negative 11 pi over 9. Where in the world would that be at? Well, first of all, I know that I have pi. Pi is 1 pi, right? Can I express pi to have a denominator of 9? I'll say this slower. Hold that thought, David. Pi is 1 pi. Can I express pi to have a denominator of 9? 9 pi over 9, because 9 divided by 9 is 1. And why did I do that? Because I know what pi is. Pi is the same thing as 9 pi over 9, right? That gives me a lot of information, because I want 11 pi over 9. Now, where in the world do you think 11 pi over 9 would be at?
Very fast, that.
What I want you to envision is this whole top part being split up into how many equal parts? 9, right? That's like saying you have 18 friends coming over and you have 1 pizza. In order for every person to get a slice of pizza, you have to make the top of it have 9 slices and the bottom of it to have 9 slices. So everyone can get a slice. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Which my question to you is where would the 11 pi over 9? Where would that 11th slice of pizza be at? It would be in the quadrant 3. However, I asked for negative 11 pi over 9. So it would actually be in, here's negative 9 pi. Here's negative 9 pi, so I have 9 slices of pizza down here. But I need how many more? 2 more. There's my angle. It's negative, so I'm opening clockwise. There's 9 slices of pizza down here. I need 2 more, so I'm going to be in quadrant 2.
Forever and always, I'll be thinking about pizza.
As long as it makes your brain understand it, I don't care.
This is a dumb question, but what was, I don't remember what you ordered the questions.
Okay, good question. Quadrant order. Here's quad 1. Where's quad 2?
To the left.
To the left. Where's quad 3? Below it. Where's quad 4? To the right of it. Okay? We all understand that. Okay, next set of instructions. Next set of instructions. What's 8? What's 8? 8 gives you 3.5. Where's 3.5? What am I looking at here? I'm looking at my decimals. So 3.5 is going to be in quadrant 3, in between 3.14 and 4.71. Right? That's why I gave you all the different equivalents. Okay, going on to the next set of instructions. Number 10. What's number 10? 7 pi over 4, negative. And it says sketch each angle in standard form. Okay. The standard form tells me I'm right here. That means my initial side is here, right? Now it's negative, so what does that mean? I'm opening this direction. What's my denominator? 4. So what does pi turn into? So whatever denominator you have is what you want pi to turn into. 4 pi over 4, right? So this is going to be negative 4 pi over 4, right? This is going to be negative 8 pi over 4, right? Do we see that? Yes or no, folks? Do we see that? So I'm going to have 4 slices of pizza below us, and I'm going to have 4 more above us, so where would 7 pi over 4 be at?
Between the top one
Right there. However, where am I opening? How am I opening?
The opposite way.
I'm going this way.
What is that?
You still don't understand which way it's opening? If it's negative, it's opening like a clock. If it's a positive angle, it's opening counterclockwise.
Now, do you care if we put both of these in the same field?
Yes, I can.
Wait, hold on. Explain how you figure out which way is open.
Okay, guys. Positive angles. This is a positive angle. Okay?
So just because it's a negative 5, makes it a negative angle.
This is a negative angle.
So because it's a negative pi, it's a negative angle, that's it.
Yep. Now, the other one was going to be what? Negative 5 pi over 2?
Absolutely negative 1 pi.
Okay. What's pi going to turn into?
Negative.
This is going to turn into 2 pi over 2. Negative. What's this going to turn into? What's this turn into? Negative 4 pi over 2. Huh. That's strange. What does that mean? Remember whenever we had our hands on 3 yesterday, and we did one whole revolution, that gave me my coterminal angle, right? That means I went over 360 degrees, didn't I? Okay? So what this means is I need to make a standard angle. There's going to be my standard position, correct? Now I need to go around that to be negative 5 pi over 2. Where's that going to be? Well, this is going to be negative 4 pi over 2. This is going to be negative 6 pi over 2. Why? Because you're going again. Keeps going. This is going to be negative 8 pi over 2. So where is going to be negative 5 pi over 2?
How did that turn into negative 6?
Because you went one revolution around it. You see that?
So you double it.
That's
So
not
now
double.
I need to go again. So if I add another pi to it,
That negative 6 seems so random. Like, I understand what you're doing here, I just don't understand why it turned into negative 6.
okay, if I'm at pi, and I'm going to add a 2 pi to it. Why am I adding 2 pi to it? Because I want a whole unit around the circle. That turns out to be 3 pi, correct? But I need it to have a denominator of 2. So put that over 1 and multiply it by 2 to give you 6 pi over 2. No idea what the hell that is. That's why it's 6 pi over 2. Does that make sense? I want to know where negative 5 pi over 2 is at. Well, that's going to be between negative 4 pi over 2 and negative 6 pi over 2. I don't need that because I need to know where that's at. Well, that's going to be all the way down here, but I went another 90-degree revolution. You see that? When you fall on an axis, you're not on a quadrant. You're on an axis. It doesn't ask for the quadrant. It says to sketch it.
So what would it do if you ask for the axis will be negative?
The y-axis.
Negative.
So like, the bottom axis, that'll be negative 5 pi over 2.
Yes.
The top would be negative 3 pi over 2.
This is negative 5 pi over 2. Okay? Which is also negative pi over 2. Right? Because you started at 0. negative pi over 2, negative 2 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 4 pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 2, negative 6 pi over 2, negative 7 pi over 2, negative 8 pi over 2, negative 9 pi over 2, negative 10 pi over 2, negative 11 pi over 2, negative 12 pi over 2. You can keep going and going and going.
Oh. Get one.
Okay? Now, I don't know how far we're going to get tomorrow. Have a good day. You know what your homework is? 36 through 92 even.
That's why I won't do it.
Hey.